Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books, and I'll let you know what I thought about them. But before we get into that, I got to give a big shout out to David Hatch. We know him, we love him, and he's been supporting us over at patreon.com/PCP since day one. David, we really do appreciate it, young man, and on behalf of everybody, stay shin. Now let's get into the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week, Homesick Pilots #1. From Image Comics. Now, this one's written by Dan Waters, with artwork by Casper Wingard, lettering by Aditya Bidikar, design work by Tom Muller. This was a really great book and a great introduction to the work of Dan Waters if you haven't already checked out some of his work. This is a very accessible #1 issue from Dan Waters. He's one of my favorite writers going right now. He's done amazing work on books like Coffin Bound and Deep Roots, and Homesick Pilots is kind of like a haunted house story, but also a story about a punk rock band. It feels very true. It's got relatable and compelling characters. It's got amazing artwork by Casper Wingard, the beautiful, luscious coloring, and the choices that are made in the coloring are just striking and bold, and I found them to be exceptional. You got Aditya Bidikar, the best letterer in the business, and Tom Muller, who's just making everybody all of a sudden start talking about the design work in comic books hardcore. All in all, this is a great package, a great book. Like I said, it's got those great characters, it's got a cool haunted house concept, and it spins the haunted house concept in a way that we don't typically see spun. I really like this book. I thought it was super solid. I think most people are really going to like this book, especially if you're into punk rock, the music, haunted house stories, crazy cool, high concept, and neat comic books with great artwork. And really, there's some pages in here. There's a moment where, let's just say, entry into the haunted house, and it's a double-page spread, and I thought it was incredibly innovative, it was an innovative twist on something that's utilized a lot. I'm getting too deep into it. Homesick Pilots #1 was fantastic. I loved it. Pick of the week, right there, from Image Comics. So there you go. Let's jump over to Marvel. We got S.W.O.R.D #1. So this is kind of spinning out of the Ten of Swords story a little bit, because that was where the X-Men found the abandoned peak sword station out in space. So basically this is the X-Men taking it over. This is Krakoa now reaching out towards the galaxy. Some really interesting stuff here. First of all, you got a wild, weird assortment of characters. Of course, Cable's involved, and that's neat, but you got Wiz Kid, you got Manifold, I was happy for that. You got Fabian Cortez, which leads to a very humorous conversation, or lack of, between Magneto and Fabian. I really like that bit. But you also have Random in here, which may seem random for some people, and even to me, but I love that character ever since I had that Toy Biz action figure, which I don't have anymore, so I gotta get one. But anyway, if you're a longtime S.W.O.R.D fan, I think you'll like this new X-Men branded venture. Abigail Brand is back, the mission is back, and now you got this Krakoan influence to it. All in all, I thought it was really cool. And then out of nowhere, it reaches for a crazy cosmic level at the end and has a twist that left me a bit perplexed, but very interested to see how this is going to develop. Al Ewing, of course, I shouldn't be super surprised for the cosmic stretch towards the end there. And Valerio Schiti does a great job with the artwork. Some really nice double-page spread compositions. Really liked it. S.W.O.R.D #1. I thought it was pretty solid. But my favorite X book this week was Marauders #16. We've been waiting for this. This is the revenge of Emma and Kate on Sebastian Shaw. And it's been building up, and then we had Ten of Swords. And it's really nice, I should say, after Ten of Swords, to kind of get back to the regular swing of things in the X books that we each individually like. I am loving Marauders, and this was everything I wanted. So they really, right out the gate, post Ten of Swords, completely delivered on every promise and every intuition in Marauders #16, but did it in an interesting way and still took me by surprise. Really like this issue. I think if you've been digging Marauders, this is going to be one of your favorite issues yet. 16 from Marauders is here. We got Venom here with issue #31. It's a King in Black tie-in. How much of a tie-in? Very much a tie-in. This is dealing with Eddie Brock in the events of King in Black. Right following, like, at the end of the first issue. How essential is it? Probably not supremely important and necessary, but it does give a little bit of expansiveness to what's going on internally for Eddie Brock, with the worry for his son, the worry for the futility of the hero's plan against Null, and just dealing. So this is basically, you know, when Null drops him in King of Black, this is like his fall. The whole issue's a fall, but you got these different narratives going around, piecing together a little bit more of, like I said, a well-rounded and expansive view on what's going on in Eddie here and what he's dealing with internally. And I like that because Venom has done big, explosive, fun, comic booky things, but it's also done that really real, down-to-earth, like exploration into like emotions and stuff. And it's nice to see that incorporated in some kind of a way to King in Black. Another King in Black tie-in is Namor #1. I don't believe it. This is a King in Black tie-in. I'll tell you what, I read this. This is a King in Black tie-in. The only thing that tells me that is that right there. This is not a King in Black tie-in. I'm telling you. I'm pretty sure this is just a Namor story that was spinning out of Atlantis Attacks. And just like the end of Atlantis Attacks, they put a King in Black little tab on it. They're doing it with this Namor book. There was maybe something's going to develop. Maybe they're going to do some kind of weird stretch to make Null or the symbiotes get related to this past story of Namor, because that's mostly what this is a past story, a flashback sequence of Namor's younger days. And it's okay, but King in Black, far from it. Is this necessary to King in Black? Not at all. It literally had nothing to do with it. Now, maybe there's going to be some kind of tie, but what Marvel? That's a King in Black tie-in? Yeah, whatever. Strange Academy is here with issue number 6. A great issue that really set up even more things to come. Had some real big shocking moments. I've been really digging Strange Academy. Humberto Ramos has done all 6 issues so far, and I really honestly think that his work in issue 6 might be the best of the series. Scotty Young's done a great job of creating these characters along with Ramos, giving them that personality, that flair, that panache. Some of my new favorite characters of the year are from the pages of Strange Academy, and in this nice, big, explosive, almost finale to the first arc, but it's leading into more stuff coming and setting up more mystery. This was a very satisfying kind of wrap up to the first 6 issues. Really did like this, though it does leave it a little bit more on a cliffhanger. What's a cliffhanger? Anyway, Strange Academy number 6, super solid. As long as that team stays solidly on that book is going to be a solid book. SpiderMan number 5. Did you guys remember that there was this J.J. Abrams and Henry Abrams and Sarah Pacelli Spider-Man book? I almost forgot about it, right? So this is the final issue. So wait no more. It's here. It's an okay conclusion to the story, but overall the story to me just never really quite grabbed me after the first issue. It was all about the twist in the first issue when you realized what the story was going to be. That was kind of exciting. And then I just felt like it never delivered. It just kind of kept giving us cliche after cliche. It kind of just anchored itself into mediocrity for a while. Tried to pull it together here at the end, but still overall, I don't know. But then again, maybe the big long space between issues hurt the absorption of this book, but I doubt it. I didn't really like it. In fact, that book makes Amazing Spider-Man look really good. In fact, this issue of Amazing Spider-Man, which is issue 54, yet another chapter in Last Remains, was actually pretty decent. It's basically a fight between the newly revealed Kindred and Peter Parker, and it's got a little bit of an emotional weight to it, of course, tied into the history of the character, and you got artwork by Mark Bagley, which is really nice in certain parts and very rushed in other parts. You got a great cover there. I just love that cover. This was an okay issue, but still, once again, just saying, this was a great issue. But everything, if you take out the Point LR issues, and thank the gods we don't have one this week, but if you took out all of that and you compress the story a little bit, right? I think it would work a little bit better. This is not a whole issue's worth of story, even though they laid it out that way. This is part of an issue, but that's one of my issues with Nick Spencer's Spider-Man run, is it's too decompressed. This is basically one scene, but it was actually pretty decently done. I liked it. is one of the rare issues of Spider-Man that I liked. So there you go. The Avengers number 39 is here. This is the prologue to Enter the Phoenix, because as if it hasn't happened in recent memory, the Phoenix is coming back to Earth to claim a new host. Oh, wow. Okay. But it's all tied in together with the Avengers of, like, what, 1 million BC, or was it 1 billion BC or whatever? And this is the, Aaron's been doing those one-shots that are focusing on individual members. This one's focusing on the Phoenix. And it introduces some concepts, like maybe some of the earliest versions of mutants in the Marvel Universe and kind of stuff like that. But I don't know, man. I'm just kind of losing it, because I like the idea that Jason Aaron has been proposing in this entire run, that there are certain totems in the Marvel Universe that are generational, like the mantle of the Black Panther, the Phoenix Force, like, even though that's why it's always so tied to Earth. Give me a space Phoenix. Anyway, I'm just not ready for. I like the whole idea, the Iron Fist, the Ghost Rider, the Spear, the Sorcerer Supreme, all that kind of stuff. The Star Brand, that's neat. I like that, but another Phoenix story, another thing where they're like, oh man, the Phoenix is coming back, who's going to be its host? And we've already seen from the covers, they're just going to, it's an excuse to make more action figures, Phoenix, and more pops, Phoenix versions of the Avengers. I don't know. It was an okay issue. Had Del Keown artwork, that's cool. I'm just not digging this whole direction. We're leading into another big Phoenix thing. I don't know. Maybe that's part of something. Juggernaut number 4 is here. This is a pretty solid and decent issue that really does help cement the change in status quo with Kane Marco and his place in the Marvel Universe and his relationship to, the Gem of Cyttorak and all that stuff. Or is it Cyttorak? Cyttorak. Cyttorak sounds more like Cyttorak. Anyway, Juggernaut number 4 is pretty decent. Fabian Nicieza's not just giving us an average Juggernaut story, but he's actually being able to kind of set a new place for Juggernaut in the reality of the Marvel Universe, and I think it's pretty cool. I really love the artwork by Ron Garney. The coloring is phenomenal. So Juggernaut number 4 was out this week. Let's jump to DC. From DC, we have Dark Knights, Death Metal, the last stories of the DC Universe. This is a giant one-shot special. It's $8.99, but it is huge. It's got to be like 80 to 100 pages. I'm not sure exactly. Probably like 80 or something. But I like this one. I thought it was pretty cool. It's basically taking the approach of, with all the craziness going on in Death Metal, and now we're gearing up for that last final battle that may be literally the end of reality. These are the last stories of the DC Universe. So these are these heroes coming together in their own individual stories, and you got stories by Scott Snyder and Tynion and Williamson do this really great Titan story that is probably going to make a little bit of a splash. People will be talking about it, but knowing the whole idea and organization of the Death Metal event, it's not, who knows if it has staying power. You get a Green Lantern story in here by Jeff Lemire. It's pretty solid. You got Wonder Woman by Mariko Tamaki. The Green Lantern story, some of these stories actually have interesting little bits. They're these sentimental stories, people reflecting on their lives as humans, as aliens, as heroes, and their legacies, reflecting on what they've done. And the Titan stuff was probably some of the best. The Green Arrow one by Jeff Lemire really has an interesting touch that will definitely put a different spin into the end and finale of Death Metal. And there's a Superman story in here by Mark Waid and Francis Manapul, which was great. And wouldn't that be a great ongoing Superman team? Mark Waid and Francis Manapul. But overall, I really liked it. Is this essential to Death Metal? No. Is it worth the $8.99? I found it to be so, but that's because I am completely engrossed and enamored with Death Metal, and I thought that this was a really nice moment to kind of pause back, take some of these other characters, and let them kind of express the weight of the situation in their own story. So I really liked it. Thought it was super solid. Speaking of anthologies, we got Batman Black and White #1. This is a new miniseries, the third or fourth time they're doing this Batman Black and White thing, and it's always great. They usually get top-tier creators to do top-tier work in Batman short stories, all in black and white, and this delivers. Usually, Batman Black and Whites are more strong because of the short nature of the stories. Their strength usually lies in the artwork, and that is no exception here. You've got J.H. Williams Oh my goodness, the artwork in that one was fantastic. Trad Moore doing the main story with James Tynion. That was wild and cool. You got Greg Smallwood, G. Willow Wilson. You got Andy Kubert coming back with Paul Dini to do some Ninja Man-Bat madness. And I really, really liked it. I thought it was super strong, very solid, and the artwork just absolutely splendid. This is a book that celebrates the nature of Batman and the artists and the different interpretations they can have, and it succeeds. In fact, it excels at that. Batman Black and White #1. Detective Comics 1032 is here, so we now know that Peter Tomasi is leaving Detective Comics. He's being replaced by a new team, Mariko Tamaki and Dan Mora. Very excited about the Dan Mora news. But anyway, these are the last couple issues then of Tomasi, and it's really nice and very, I think, appropriate for his last stories right now on an ongoing Batman book to be about the relationship between Damian and Batman. Now they're bringing Hush back into it, and that's okay and that's interesting, but I really like the dynamic and what they're building up here again, because apparently Bruce and Damian have gone through some tough times lately, and Bruce is understanding this and reaching out, and still you got that fun action-packed Detective Comics Batman stuff. So Detective Comics 1032, pretty strong and decent. I think Peter Tomasi is shoring up everything right here in his final arc, and really it's gone from directionless to final statement, and I like it. Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Flashpoint #1. This is a one-shot, one of those dark multiverse what-if type stories. This one focuses in on Flashpoint and what if Reverse Flash wound up kind of being like the victor of Flashpoint. That's what this story is, so it's a dark, twisted version of that tale. It's okay. It's completely written and illustrated by Brian Hitch, so it's got some moments where the art shines, and it's got some cool moments in the story, but overall, it just, those few and far between moments weren't enough to kind of pull this together into an exciting book. All in all, I've been rather let down by the second wave of the Tales from the Dark Multiverse books. I thought the first waves were super strong. These ones, though, I don't know. They've just been okay. Speaking of just okay, Endless Winter. I was really shocked and surprised at my enjoyment of Justice League Endless Winter, the one-shot that kicked everything off last week. So now we're going through the story in these various specials and in certain issues of these things. Flash, and I think Aquaman is next week. So Flash 767 is here. It's Andy Lanning, Ron Mars, continuing the Endless Winter story. If you're just picking up Flash, just to read Flash, you're going to get this issue and be like, what's going on? But don't worry, this reads as mostly just a Flash issue. As far as an Endless Winter tie-in, not just a tie-in, part 2 of the story, pretty weak, because it gives you a little bit of information, just enough information to progress certain parts of the story, right? Just enough to make it not skippable if you want to absorb all of Endless Winter. But most of this is just the Flash running around and talking to himself and to you, being like, I'm fast. Who's this Frost King? We don't know. The story doesn't really progress, but there are moments in here that are part of the progression of the story, but it doesn't progress by any of the events that actually are caused by this book, and it just felt kind of rather boring and meaningless. Did not like that. Now we got Superman special. #1, Endless Winter. This is Endless Winter Part 3. It's the exact same as The Flash. It is exactly the same. It's got a couple of scenes that move the story a little bit forward, introduce some elements, elaborate on some things. But most of it is just Superman running around talking to himself. That's really it. Like, it's kind of boring. I don't want this boring spotlight, elongated spotlight on Superman in one issue and Flash in another. Like, you started with a cool story. If it's only 2 issues worth of story, just give us 2 solid issues of story. Don't spread it out into all this stuff. So I just, so far, not really liking Endless Winter. And they're doing a Superman special, see, because Bendis is wrapping up his Superman run, so they're not tying it in to... Anyway, in Endless Winter, there's some interesting stuff about DC's past and Black Adam. But all in all, these 2 issues were incredibly weak. Then we've got DC's Very Merry Multiverse. It's an 80-page giant for $10. This is a one-shot celebrating the holiday season across the multiverse. This has actually got some really cool stories in it. It's got a Gotham by Gaslight story in here with artwork by Danny. That's right, artist of Lolo Woods and Coffin Bound. That was super, super cool. For the most part, though, you got some decent talent doing some pretty solid, decent stories that are spread throughout the DC multiverse. And I think it's been picking up a little bit in interest because it has the first appearance of one of the Flashes from Future State or something like that. I don't know. But maybe. I think that was in there. But all in all, it was pretty decent. If you like those holiday specials, it's cool. But DC's asking a lot of you this week, with the Batman Black and White being $5.99, with Tales or the Death Metal tie-in being $8.99, that one being $9.99. They're asking a lot of you. They're asking maybe too much. Maybe just if you choose one, Batman Black and White. Also, American Vampire 1976 is here. Book 3, this issue 3. Love that cover. Didn't read this issue, though, because I read the last couple, and I was like, this is spoiling too much for me, because I only ever read the first 4 trade paperbacks of American Vampire, so... But I did just want to let you know that it was out. Same with Sweet Tooth, The Return, issue number 2. I read issue number 1. So confused. Never read Sweet Tooth. Don't want to take the chance that something here is going to mess up any of my enjoyment on Sweet Tooth. The book is right over there on the table. I will be reading it soon. So Sweet Tooth, The Return number 2 is out. Let's jump over to Image, where we have crossover number 2 from Donny Cates and Jeff Shaw, D. Cunniffe, and Joe J. Hill. Crossover number 1 I was really into. I thought it was a really cool, strong concept. Basically, there's this giant crossover event between all these comic book companies, and it breaks into the real world, and then it gets sealed off over Denver, Colorado. Now the world has changed. It's different. Superheroes are outlawed. And then what happens when maybe some of them have leaked out into the populace? What? All kinds of craziness. I really like the ties in to Seduction of the Innocent and just what it means to be a comic book fan, what these heroes mean to us as fans, but what it could mean to the real world at the same time. So that's interesting. However, in issue number 2, not a lot happens. I'll be honest, not a lot happens here. Now, there's some funny little bits. There's some interesting teases of what's coming up in the story, but mostly it's just kind of some exposition and some reflection on what the story is, and reflection of the characters on the events in the story and things like that. It was cool. It had solid artwork from Jeff Shaw, decent writing from Donny Cates, but it just wasn't super exciting. Like, it was okay, but it wasn't overly exciting. And there are a lot of teases to some major excitement to come, so I'm excited to see where this is going to go. But issue number 2 for me felt a bit lully. Like, in issue number 2 already, we're slowing it down just a little bit. Usually we're accustomed to a much more frantic pace from Cates at times, especially in the opening acts of his story arcs. But crossover number 2 was decent, but it wasn't really like mind-blowing or anything like that. We also got Getting It Together number 3 from Image Comics. Sina Grace, Omar Spahi, Ginny D. Fine. Really, really liking this book. It feels real. It feels grounded in young love. And this is about like being in your 20s, trying to figure out who you are. You're trying to figure out, you know, relationships, you're trying to figure out careers, you're trying to figure out passions, and it's about you and your friends in the midst of all of this. And to me, this just is almost like self-biographical. Like, I really, really liked Getting It Together. Issue number 3 is great. This is the penultimate issue. We got one left. There's some great moments. There's a nice scene where they're all doing drugs. This book feels real. A lot of us probably had experiences just like Getting It Together, and the highest hats off for that. I really think that's a very strong, realistic, and grounded comic book that I'm really, really digging. From Boom Studios, we have The Red Mother, number 11, the penultimate issue, and holy cow, if you think that this series is a slow burn, if you're still saying that, if you're still saying it takes too long for things to happen, and I've been saying it's all about this slow build up to something supremely explosive. Well, that explosion happens here in Red Mother, number 11. Holy cow. I loved this issue. This issue was incredibly strong, like it always is, as far as the writing, the artwork, the line work is so precise and deliberate. The colors, every choice that's made about this book feels so purposeful and with intent. And it just makes one amazingly beautiful and exhilarating and compelling experience. And now it's all coming up. All these different elements that have slowly been merging together into one ultimate point. They are now hitting that point. I am blown away by this book. I love it. I think it's next level. Red Mother number 11 out this week. Mighty Morphin number 2 from Boom Studios. This is continuing the tradition that Ryan Parrott has of just crafting really great, fun, action-packed superhero stories for the Power Rangers, but actually with a bit more realism as far as the way humans act and interact and their relationships and communication with each other than that TV show will ever give us, and much greater and grander in scope, threats, and stories. And that's what they're doing, and they're continuing to do it. It is a bit confusing at times because they've basically split Mighty Morphin into two books, Mighty Morphin and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and they kind of play off of one another. So you may not have to necessarily read both of them, but they definitely work a lot better when you read both of them. Just make a bi-weekly Power Rangers book. We don't need all that nonsense. Anyway, Mighty Morphin #2, pretty super solid, really interesting stuff, and some of the best superhero dynamic, kinetic, charged action out there. On comic book shelves, 7 Secrets #5 is here. I believe this is the penultimate issue of its first arc. If not, is it only 6 issues? I don't know how long this is going. It should at least go 7 issues, right? Anyway, issue #5, it really hits the fan in this one. Really cool stuff. I'm loving the characters, the mystery, the build-up, the tension, the explosiveness of the artwork. It has a very much a manga influence. It's action-packed. It's got great angular composition to it as far as perspective, but definitely as far as the panel, the grids and layouts. Really, really digging 7 Secrets. I thought this was one of the strongest ones because it just ramped up that tension, and it just makes you feel, you know, like when you're watching a badass action movie and you're just like, oh my god, it's about to happen. That's what happened in the pages of 7 Secrets #5. So 2 great penultimates from Boom this week. Really, really like that one. From Vault Comics, we got Giga #2, elaborating a little bit more on the murder mystery idea and the world building of Giga. Giga is about this world in which there was this giant war fought by these giant mech god-like robots, right? And then when the war was over, they just kind of sat down and chilled, went into sleep mode, basically, and now humanity lives in them, worships them, but some don't, and there are different factions. And this is what's being done so delicately through the script with the world building by writer Alex Packnadell. John Lee and Roche do a great job with the artwork, giving it that expressiveness that it needs for the characters, but also this really deeply intricate and detailed work with the surroundings, with the mechs, with the nature that's around it. And I love that usage of like vegetation in the midst of this mechanical existence, and really great. And you feel the grit and the weight and the rawness of the life that the characters are living, and you're seeing this paint of society and its class structure system, and it's just such a great book, the way that they're building it up. But it's not just like they're writing characters telling you what's going on. You're figuring this out. Alex is throwing in little bits and pieces of the scriptures, and you can therefore interpret it yourself what's going on and what they think what's going on. And really great stuff. I'm loving it. The world building is exceptional. The character works great, and it feels real in the midst of this fantastical situation. Giga #2. And like I said, that deepening murder mystery. And a lot of political stuff at play there. Not like political, like it's a political book, meaning like the politics of the world that Giga is set in. Anyway, The Devil's Red Bride is here with issue #3. Great samurai tale, kind of mixed in with the classic soldier sold to the devil type story. Really great stuff. John Bivens' artwork is fantastic. Gerner's script is right to the point. It doesn't waste any space. I'm really liking this book. If you're in desperate need for a great samurai book, Devil's Red Bride might be for you. From Aftershock, we got Lonely Receiver #4. Man, this book is so wild. I love this book. It is a crazy book that is about all kinds of things, right? It starts off and it's kind of about a breakup, like someone going through a serious breakup, and then it's got this sci-fi element in which basically you can create in this world the perfect mate for yourself. But then you get after the breakup, you get these ideas of jealousy and rage and despair and anger and the way that Zach Thompson and Jen Hickman are working all of those different themes into these crazy weird sci-fi concepts, it makes a very unusual, unnerving, and just kind of eerie read, but incredibly engrossing. This book is nothing to me if not compelling. This book is just oozing with imagination, with high concepts, with real, raw, brutal human truths about relationships, and just this sense of flair you can only get in a comic book. And great artwork and great color choices by Hickman. Lonely Receiver number 4 is wild. It's a hard book to explain fully. It's incredibly cerebral. It's very weird. Surreal probably would be the better word. But it's so fascinating. So fascinating. Hey, look at this. Speaking of fascinating, we got the final issue of Mountainhead. Mountainhead number 5 is here from writer John Lees and artist Ryan Lee. Holy cow. What a more than satisfying conclusion to Mountainhead. Now, this one's been delayed for a while. I think we haven't gotten an issue of this since the Diamond shutdown, right? But it definitely lived up to the hype and anticipation for me. This book had amazingly detailed, yet very, I hate using the word cartoony, but kind of cartoonish, expressive artwork, but still incredibly detailed and dense with it. So it's not cartoony. That's why it's the wrong word to use. It is incredibly stylized as far as the artwork goes and the story. The story has morphed into this wild, rambunctious body horror type thing, and the ending is super solid. The way all the bits of the pieces have come together at the end, incredibly amazing. This book was awesome. If you are a horror fan and you have not read Mountainhead, you definitely need to. If you're having trouble finding it, don't worry. It comes out in trade paperback in January, but oh my goodness, I loved Mountainhead number 5. I thought that was dope. From IDW and DC, we have Lock and Key Sandman Universe number 0. So this isn't the first issue of the official Sandman Lock and Key crossover. This is a 0 issue. This reprints Sandman number 1, and it reprints a short story about a past version of the Locke family that I think are going to figure into the whole crossover. So if you are an avid fan of both, you probably already have read the content in this book. But if you haven't and you want to get caught up on what's going on and know what world you're about to jump into, check it out. Lock and Key Sandman number 0 from IDW and DC. Scarant Hood number 2 is here from IDW. This book didn't woo me quite as much as issue number 1, but it still was pretty solid. It didn't have quite such a nice flow. It did feel a bit more clunky at times. It just felt a little stilted in the pacing and the flow. But overall, it still is compelling. It still is interesting. It still has these real, raw thoughts about a parent's fear for their child, especially when the parent's like missing time. So there's some really interesting ideas and mysteries that are developing, but maybe not quite fast enough for a book that's quite dense and takes a bit to read. Each issue is $4.99, but it is extra size, but there's a lot of panel work and there is a lot of dialogue per certain pages. So it does kind of feel like a bit more of a slow read, but it is interesting. So it's only 4 issues, so we're going to stick with it. For sure. From AWA, we have Byte-Sized. This is kind of like batteries not included, ET type thing like that. You know, like I guess they're these escaped. I don't know if they're like mechanical aliens or if they're like some kind of experiment, but they escape and they go to this small town and basically one of them is going to befriend this girl at Christmas time. So this is nice. It's like an ET type thing, or at least that's what it's set up to be in the first issue. We'll see with the turns because you never know where it's going to turn when Cullen Bunn's involved. He's the writer of this, so if you like Bunn's work, I think you might like this one. It's nice to have a nice, fun Christmas story during Christmas time that's not necessarily about Christmas. Some of my favorite Christmas movies are not necessarily about Christmas. You know, we're talking about Batman Returns, Die Hard, Gremlin, Lethal Weapon, Rambo. Rambo's a Christmas movie. But Byte-Sized number 1 was a really solid start. Nice, fun artwork. It basically almost seems all ages in a way. It has that Gremlins kind of vibe to it, maybe, but we shall see where it develops. But Byte-Sized number 1 was pretty solid. Year 0, Volume 2, Issue number 2. You know, I'm just not liking Volume 2 near as much as Issue number 1. I really think that the artwork was one of the big draws to me in Issue number 1. Now, I know on the Best Comics of the Month stream, Dylan said that he really liked this more detailed and textured artwork, especially for a zombie story. And I understand that. That makes sense. Most people would definitely probably prefer, I guess, Juan Jose Rip's artwork compared to the other one. But I love the style of the other one, the usage of color. They do try to use color here to differentiate between the different stories, but not as effective to me. There's only one story in here, too, that really compels me, and it's about the pregnant young lady that's locked away in the warehouse at the grocery store. Aside from that, it's just okay. I'm just not digging it as much as I was the first one, but it is the art change that really probably has the most to do with that. But Year Zero, Volume 2, Number 2, it ain't bad. It ain't bad. From Dark Horse, we got True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys, National Anthem number 3. This book is amazing. First of all, Gerard Way and Sean Simon basically telling a prequel to the original True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys, kind of about, I guess, the group before and what inspired them and how this world kind of leads more into the where we are when, I guess, it's newly retitled California now. So I'm loving it. I love this punk rock sensibility to it. I love this free-flowing nature of the story amidst the artwork, the characters, and the dialogue. It's very loose, and I love that. It feels rock and roll. It feels like the volume's cranked up to 11, and that's how it should feel, right? And then you have the artwork. Like, Leonardo Romero's artwork is amazing. Fantastic work done here. And the coloring, this may be, in my opinion, some of Jordie Bellaire's best coloring I've ever seen. And I think Jordie Bellaire's been one of the best colorists of the last 10 years in comics. But National Anthem number 3, I'm loving it. The book is all over the place. It's wild. It's kooky. It's a fun ride. And it's exactly what I dig. Speaking of exactly what I dig, Station! We got the final Bill and Ted comic for now. Hopefully we can get more one day. But Bill and Ted Are Doomed, number 4, a real fun, rambunctious conclusion to the story that was billed as the bridge between Bogus Journey in the Face the Music. That's not quite the case, but it is a nice story that is set in that time period that does have Bill and Ted's daughters in it. And of course, they got the stations in it, and you've got Death, and you've got Robot Bill and Ted, and you have lots of fun, wild stuff here. Here they are against these evil gods that are resurrected by this demon-worshipping metal band that's out there to end all false metal, of which they accuse Bill and Ted. Right, Bill and Ted Are Doomed, number 4. Loved it. Loved it. Norse Mythology is here with issue number 3. This is P. Craig Russell adapting Neil Gaiman's book, which of course is just retelling Norse mythology. So we're getting Norse mythology told by P. Craig Russell. And I love his artwork. I haven't shown any artwork yet, but this dude has always been one of my favorites when it comes to layouts, to panel design and composition. He's got a very similar flow and style to someone like a Mike Mignola. But here we are just telling these not so commonly known here in the States, I guess, Norse tales. I love Norse mythology, so I just eat that shit up. But, and of course, Myth and Legend back in high school, Stabs, what's up, represent, senior year, 99. Norse Mythology number 3, though, is really great. I'm loving this book, and I really, like I said, I love Russell's work, and I love it when he's doing something like this, and this made me want to reread all of the, I've never read all of it. What is it? Ring of the Nibelung or whatever? The Flight of the Valkyries, all that stuff. He did a graphic interpretation of that whole opera, right? That stuff was great. That's when indies back in the 90s. Don't sleep on them. And finally, let's talk about Terminal Punks with issue number 2 from Mad Cave Studio, written by Matthew Ehrman. It's a really cool concept. It gets a bit too verbose, and it kind of bogs down the flow of the story, which I think should be a bit more free and loose, right? This is a punk rocky type story too. Terminal Punks is about this punk rock band that's stuck in an airport terminal in which these crazy monsters, named after e-liquids, well, that's a wild twist, are running around, and they're involved in it, right? And so it's fun, and it's kooky and cool, but sometimes it's just a bit too verbose, and it kind of just bogs down, I think, the pace. It should have a more frantic, fun pace. I think more of the humor would hit well. At least that's my interpretation of it, but I still think it's a solid concept, and overall, a solid book. Terminal Punks, number 2. So that's what I read. That's what I thought about it. What are you reading? What are you digging? What was your pick of the week? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Please do like, share, subscribe. Click the notification bell so you don't miss a single video. And join us over at popculturephilosophers.com for podcasts, blogs, and a whole lot more. I've been Rockin Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading.